Welcome to another episode of the Lilac City Leadership Podcast. Today is an awesome time here in the downtown in the Paulson building, and we have an awesome guest on the show today, Executive Director of Spokane Hoopfest, Matt Santangelo. So Matt, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
We're all fired up. A lot of folks around town know your story, others who don't, and we want to uncover some of that as well as some of the lesser known things. As well as things that you're passionate about. So I'm excited to dive in. I'm your host, James Krejci, and your other host,
Doyle Wheeler.
And let's dive in. So, Matt, tell us about just kind of your personal journey, how you arrived in Spokane, what has shaped you to this day.
Well, that's a lot to unpack there. No, born in North Portland, so I'm from Portland originally. I was the youngest of 9 kids, so I got 5 older sisters and 3 older brothers.
Wow.
I've said before, I've learned a lot of great lessons. My brothers taught me how to be physically tough. My sisters taught me how to be mentally and emotionally tough. The lessons I learned from my sisters are a lot more valuable than the lessons I learned from my brothers. But what brought me to Spokane, basketball, really. I'm kind of surrounded by it here in the office. At Hoopfest is where we sit now in the Paulson Center in the Hoopfest office. And so I started playing basketball when I was really young. Started playing year-round in about 7th grade, and it kind of created a lot of opportunity. It's something I was crazy love and passionate about. But then because of that, it created a lot of opportunity. And I was always on good teams. Always had really good coaches, benefited from great coaches. And played, obviously grade school through high school, opportunity for it to bring me to college, and then play professionally after college too throughout Europe. So I love it so much I can't get away from it as I'm surrounded by basketball even now as an adult.
That's a good thing. I mean, that's what people often are looking for, is to be in what they truly love. So,
and speaking of surrounded by basketball, you can kind of feel the anticipation of an awesome Hoopfest coming up.
Yeah, we're less than a month away. We just closed registration. We're asking for volunteers now, and then of course keeping our eyes and ears open on all things COVID and air quality as I look out our window here, and it's a little smoky today in Spokane. So there's still a lot of obstacles, but we're optimistic, and we have Hoopfest is a situation, an organization, and an event that we kind of get a seat at a lot of tables, meaning we have a great relationship with the city of Spokane, great relationship with the regional health district, and at the state level as well. So those lines of communication are wide open, and I'm bugging them a lot just to make sure that we're doing what we need to do in order to have a safe and successful Hoopfest in September.
Good for you. So for those who are living under a rock and don't know yet what Spokane Hoopfest is, maybe kind of break down what the event is, but also what the organization represents.
Yeah, I appreciate the question around the organization, because I think for the most part, at least local, regional people are aware of Hoopfest, the event.
Yeah.
Hoopfest is the largest 3-on-3 basketball tournament in the world, arguably the largest basketball event tournament in the world. We bring over 6,000 teams, about 250,000 people to downtown Spokane over the weekend of Hoopfest. And we bring them from all over the world. 2019 we had 43 states represented in our registration and 4 countries. So this is a global event in our little, our corner of the world. And it's cool, and it generates, it does a lot of good, not only just for the event and for the vibrancy and diversity and inclusion that our event fosters, but also economic impact, about a $50 million economic impact to the region every year. That's not over history, that's every
Incredible.
June. And of course, these last 16 months have been hard. We got canceled last year. We had to morph into a virtual event. We got a ton of support from our athletes and our sponsors in order to get us to this year. And we've already had to postpone it into September. Normally, we're the end of June. So the event's a pretty dynamic thing, but it's a huge community event. About 3,000 volunteers that it takes to pull it off and execute it. But it's world class. It really is second to none. So then the organization, the broader organization around the event, it's a nonprofit. We're a small business, 7 full-time staff is all, but we run Spokane AAU, which is one of the largest youth basketball programs in the country, 3rd through 8th grade. It's been around even longer than Hoopfest. Eastern Washington Elites High School Club Traveling Team, Ignite Basketball Outreach Program. We've donated about $3 million back into the community by building 32 regional park courts. We run the Fitz Clinic, the Fitz Camp, and in 2019 we launched the Hooptown USA initiative, which is a whole another evolution of basketball in our community. like I said, it's a lot of basketball, man.
Very few irons in the fire. I'm kidding. No,
it's
this is impressive. The amount of reach that you guys have, and most people know what the event is because it's high profile, but it's impressive to also hear kind of the some of the other after the event, before the event, what kind of giving back that you do for our youth community as well.
Yeah, it's a priority for us. I mean, when Hoopfest was founded in 1990, one of the large priorities was to be able to donate money to Special Olympics. That's our primary beneficiary from the proceeds of the event.
Okay.
And so we're the largest donor in Eastern Washington to Special Olympics of Washington, and have been for 32 years. So we're really proud of that partnership. We're really proud of the athletes. We have a great relationship with both Special Olympics, with parasport and wheelchair athletes, adaptive athletics, with unified teams, so mixed ability teams. So we're really proud. So when I say that we are, we're our most diverse weekend of the year, we're also our most inclusive, because Hoopfest isn't, you don't get to 24,000 athletes if you're only going after Kevin Durant, right? There's only one of those guys. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of athletes that love to participate, play basketball, be around the sport, or be around an event like that. So it's a unique thing. It's uniquely Spokane.
Yeah.
There's not a community in the country that doesn't have a 3-on-3 tournament. There ain't nothing like Hoopfest. And so it's something that we all should be collectively very proud of.
And trust me, there's plenty of people who think they're Kevin Durant that play in this tournament.
That's right.
So,
yeah, there is that. And I always like, too, it kind of tongue-in-cheek, I always say it takes two types of people to make Hoopfest happen. One person is literally at Rotary Fountain and Riverfront Park in the heart of it all, like people and action and all the activities. And there's another person that's going to the lake on that weekend going, I'm getting as far away from downtown as I possibly can.
Yeah.
But what I always say, we need them both, because we obviously need the person that's passionate about Hoopfest and Spokane and the community. But those other people that, might not like the crowds or like that much energy or activity, as they're driving away from downtown, they go, gosh, I'm really proud we can do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to go. It's crazy down there, but I'm proud that Spokane can pull something like that off. And so I always joke, no matter what, even if you're not here, you're still part of the Hoopfest family. We're all doing it together.
Totally.
That's right.
Well, I've grown up here. This is my home.
Yeah.
And when Hoopfest started, I was young. And so my teenage years, I've grown up with Hoopfest as a part of life. I never once played, but I was always involved. I was always there seeing it. And so the thing I'm trying to pull from this is what you said about the people that love the event, that love Spokane. 3-on-3 brings those people into town. And from my older years and having kids, what I witness is people that don't have basketball shorts on that are involved and they're helping, or they're just seeing the spectacle, because it is amazing.
It is.
I mean, it is a sight to see.
It is, and I say that I appreciate that, Dwayne, and I say all those things hopefully it never comes across as a bragging way, because I've only been involved since 2014. I'm just being a steward of this awesome thing. I get to play a really cool role as a teammate to this thing. But this is not bragging. It is overwhelmingly cool.
Yeah.
I say that with eyes wide open, from behind the curtain, from in front of the curtain. It is overwhelmingly cool, the amount of effort, especially from the volunteers. 3,000 volunteers, and it's not necessarily easy. And we have volunteers that literally have come up to me before and said, I don't even like basketball.
Exactly.
But I love Hoopfest. And so to the point is the basketball in our community, and as we broaden into the conversation around Hooptown USA, different than Hoopfest, the event, that's the thread that connects us, right? And especially from where I get to sit and and engage in the community, that's the platform, and I get to see how strong those connections are, how strong that thread is, because of not only my ties to Hoopfest, but my ties to Gonzaga basketball as well. Two world-class examples of basketball alive,
right?
And we have them right here in Spokane.
Well, to be totally honest, and your transparency is amazing. That's cool, and I didn't feel like you were hyping anything other than the event itself. But that at the end of the day, basketball happens, 3-on-3 happens, then the event happens. So if it wasn't basketball first, there would be no hoop or no hoop in Hoopfest.
It's right. And then it's just kind of built and morphed and built and morphed. But at the core is basketball.
Yeah.
That's what makes this whole thing go. Anyway, really fortunate to be a
cool.
part of it from this, from where I get to sit.
So we were going to talk about this later on, but I think Hooptown USA, where this part of the conversation is going. Let's dive into that. So
Yeah.
I know probably little enough to be dangerous, so I want you to talk about the Hooptown USA.
Yeah.
What does it represent, and how did it come about?
Yeah, so I'll start with kind of the origin story, if you will. My daughter's a Marvel fanatic, so we'll go with origin stories and morph it into the multiverse or something like that, which
Always
is,
good.
you know. But what it started was a few years ago, Visit Spokane, our visitors bureau here in town, wanted to rebrand. And they went from near nature, near perfect to creative by nature. But in that rebranding process, they kind of worked with community stakeholders, say, hey, what do you think Spokane stands for? And so I, being a part of Hoopfest, they came to Hoopfest and asked me what I thought Spokane stood for. And so when I started to kind of think about it, obviously I do things through basketball filters. You know, it's my love language. And so I was like, I started to realize, like, man, we are a basketball town.
Yeah.
Like my connection to Gonzaga basketball, my, you know, obviously the broader Hoopfest community. Like, there's not a day that goes by that I don't talk about basketball in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And the thing that I found that was really interesting is that in a lot of times I'm not talking with people who play basketball. I'm talking with fans. You know, the greatest you know, fan community of Gonzaga basketball is the retirement community. They maybe never have played basketball or at least not in recent years, but they know every recruit, they know their mom and dad, they know their little nieces and nephews, they know the cousins, they know the whole family. And then, of course, I talked briefly before about the volunteers at Hoopfest. Like, that's the magic sauce. And so I went back to Visit Spokane. I said, we are a basketball town. Like, that's what I think we should stand for. Now, throwing a little wrinkle here, because I'm from Portland, you know, Portland's motto is keep Portland weird. It's not keep Portland eccentric and sophisticated. It's like, screw it, we're weird. Let's just own it and move on, you know? So I went to Spokane. I was like, why try to create another identity? Yeah. We have this really unique thing in the water here that's tied to basketball. So let's just own this piece of our identity, highlight it, build upon it, grow it, and, you know, and screw it, move on, you know, just instead of recreating it. Now, understandably so, that was narrowly focused for our visitors bureau, right? However, really resonated with our office, with our organization, with my board of directors. So we started to continue to do some work on it, and lo and behold, like Hooptown USA, the trademark, the name, no one owned. So it made perfect sense, right? Hoopfest, Spokane is not a big city. It's, you know, it's a big town, small city. So Hooptown is like, this is perfect.
Exactly.
And so we were able to trademark that, and then we kind of sat on it for a while. Then, now what do you do with it? What does this really mean? We got approached by Riverfront Park on the North Bank development of Riverfront Park to put in a basketball court.
Yeah.
And so when we first got approached, they wanted to know if we just wanted to contribute something to that, if we were in a position to contribute some funding for that. And at that time, we said we don't want to just contribute, like we want to own the whole project. You know, we'll figure out a way to raise the money, but we want to have some creative control. We want to be able to do it to where, you know, do something special. Yeah.
All in.
And so at that time, we kind of brought back the Hooptown USA, said let's do this under a broader concept of Hooptown USA versus just the event Hoopfest, even though that's the 800-pound gorilla that makes everything go. That is the battleship. But we kind of relaunched it, and we had 4 initiatives in mind. One was the Riverfront Park complex that's now built and up and running. The second piece was a Hooptown Hall of Fame, which we will launch in September at Hoopfest this year, which will also be open to the public with displays at the shelter just south, adjacent to the basketball courts in Riverfront Park. The third piece was some TLC. So over the 32 years of Hoopfest, we've built 32 plus community park courts. So anytime you drive by a park, you see a Hoopfest backboard. That's been paid for by proceeds of the event and of the organization. They needed some TLC, so we wanted to revamp and enhance those. Yeah. In that particular community court conversation, I had a real interest in fusing together art and basketball. And so they've been doing these really beautiful things all over the world of using the basketball courts as murals and having artists come in and really build these public art installations on this huge concrete slab of basketball court. Brilliant. And I was like, oh, how cool would it be to create this mosaic of art and basketball in Hooptown, USA? So imagine flying over it, and you got, Chief Gary Park, you got Peaceful Valley, which you wouldn't be able to see because it's under a bridge, but you got Riverfront Park, you got Thornton Murphy happening, you got Franklin Park happening this summer. And so you kind of have, and then you have local artists. So you're engaging this community, because at the end of the day, and now I know I'm going on a little bit of a tangent.
I'm getting the chills, honestly.
Well, I'm
cool.
getting on a little bit of a tangent, but we're all artists.
Yeah.
Right? It's just basketball is someone's chosen artistic expression. Music is someone else's. Dance is someone else's. The visual arts, podcasting, we're all artists.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't have to be this at odds of you're an athlete and I'm an artist. No, we all are artists. Mm-hmm. And so I really like the idea of fusing those two audiences together, because typically they don't always jive, when it really is, because the culture of basketball is a whole other conversation. Not the playing experience, but how it connects people.
Yeah.
So the fourth piece to that original Hooptown USA launch initiative was this idea of citywide branding. So we really wanted to create this citywide identity around Hooptown USA. So when you start to look at what we've done there, simple as the installation at the airport. When you get off at the airport, you see, Hooptown USA. The billboards, the banners, kind of the assets that we have in place, so that when the NCAA tournament comes to Hooptown USA, we can kind of flip the switch and boom, it looks like Hooptown USA. I always liken it like Nashville, right? When you get off at the airport in Nashville, you get hit over the head with country music, right? You know exactly where you're at, right? Yeah. So in Hooptown USA, when you get off the airplane, I want someone to throw you a basketball. Okay, got it. Okay, why are they throwing me a basketball? Because you're in Hooptown USA. It's gonna be hitting people in the face. They're not gonna know how to catch it or shoot it. But that's the idea. Is we want you to know exactly where you're at. Now we want you to look around and be like, this community is crazy for basketball. What's going on here?
Exactly.
And so that identity. So we've done in that we have a radio station, Hooptown 101.5 with iHeart. We've had a beer partnership with No Lie, local very successful microbrewery. We've done Indaba Coffee. We've done a number of different partnerships as we're trying to grow this idea of a community brand. Great retail offering. And ultimately, with the latest development on that is about a month ago now, City of Spokane approved it. So the City Council approved us as Hooptown USA, which allows us to put up street signs. So as you're coming into the city, welcome to Spokane, gotcha. Hooptown USA. Yeah. And so that was one of our initiatives as well. So that was kind of the launch of Hooptown USA. We launched that at Hoopfest 2019, and our big ambitious goal was to raise $1 million. To be able to bring those 4 initiatives to life. Yeah. And so we had kind of presented this to Multicare Health System, who's a partner and sponsor of ours on Hoopfest. I said, what do you think? How does this make sense? And they said, that sounds interesting. So we kind of continued that conversation for not very long, maybe 3 weeks, a month. And so on Saturday morning at Hoopfest 2019, we're sitting in the conference room, which is not usually where I'm at. Saturday morning Hoopfest is not in the conference room. I'm in the streets. And we kind of presented with management, upper management, executive level management from Multicare. And we said, our big goal ask was $1 million. And we'd never done this before. We'd never done a capital campaign. It's not how Hoopfest has been. Hoopfest has always been through registration and sponsorship and different revenue sources. And they said, yes. Just like that, $1 million.
And yes, you mean yes?
Right. The first thing I thought was shoot, I should have asked for more money. If it was going to be that easy, I should ask for $2 million. But that was it. Multicare saw the vision behind it, even though it was brand new. They knew who was doing it. They knew, ultimately Hoopfest is the steward of this brand, or this organization is the steward of the brand. But they saw the vision behind it, and they put money where their mouth was and said, yes, it's about building healthier communities, which is a part of their mission statement. And this is a way for them to really bring that mission to life through us as the basketball effort. And so then you've seen now the things that we've done with it, and it seems to resonate. Mm-hmm. It continues to resonate. So what we get to do with it now is just getting more and more fun and creative as we look forward. Even during the pandemic, we were able to put a lot of money to work and have success throughout the year, in large part due to that that launch in 2019.
Right. And so to all the Multicare listeners out there, Hoopfest will accept the other $1 million that you've been talking about.
Yeah, so bank account's still open.
Go ahead and get that going.
That's why.
And we already got all the wiring instructions dialed now, so that's even easier.
Yeah,
they just
we've proven
just all push of a button at this point.
So just let us know when that happens, and we'll come back and have another podcast.
So what's really cool is that I'm a basketball junkie and a leadership junkie, and these kind of bring these two together. But it's impressive how much basketball junkies, so to speak, have leadership kind of already built in. And like, I don't know if it's the, ability to take a strategy and execute it on the basketball court. Yeah. It seems to translate to leadership as well. It's like you guys had this strategy of Hooptown, and then it's not just something on paper. It's you're putting it out
you actually
there,
have to go do it.
Yeah.
When I think again, I would broaden it even beyond basketball. But when you're passionate about something, you do it, right? If you there's no secret sauce, right? I mean, if you want to be a better piano player, you got to play the piano. A better drawing artist, you have to draw. Like I always joke around, like you want to learn how to dribble a basketball, you got to put your butt in a stance and dribble the basketball. Like there's no way to do it. You got to do it for hours and hours and hours and hours. So I think some of that comes through for people that have put themselves outside their comfort zone in any medium for any amount of time. You get you become the habit kind of forms of being uncomfortable, and I think that's also lends itself to leadership. Because in leadership, a lot of times you're uncomfortable. You don't know. I don't know. I don't always have the answers, but sometimes I got to shoulder the choice. Yeah. And that's my responsibility. I also think in sports, and this one may be a little bit more specific to sport in general, but one of the greatest lessons sports teaches is how to lose.
Yeah, agreed.
A lot of people never know how to. It's a horrible feeling. Like it hurts. It physically hurts you when you lose. Yeah. But if you grow up with that feeling, like you just get back up. Yeah. You go play again. You try a little harder. If you couldn't dribble left-handed again, you better go work on that before the next time you go on the big stage, the court, and play. So it teaches you these habits of resilience and these habits of diligence and these habits of then broad, like it's teamwork, it's goal setting, it's discipline, all those things as well. So you're learning all these things without it. You don't even know you're learning them half the time because you're a kid, and you're playing a game. Yeah. It is fun. And you're on accident, you're learning all these things so that when you get to a role as you get older into a more professional role, you're more prepared for whatever that environment's going to throw at you because you have you've been building these habits. And so I think in at least for sport, I always like that analogy, like learning to lose, learning to kind of pick yourself back up, because that's what you need more often in life than you just don't win. Yeah. You don't win every time. And I always joke, like in basketball, like I've lost more often than most people have played, but I've won more than I've lost. Yeah, like that's how much I've actually been uncomfortable that often. And like in basketball too, I always say it's like the most intimate sport. Like you're literally running around in your underwear, right? You got a tank top and shorts on, and you better believe if you can't dribble left-handed, there will be some mom in the crowd going, "Force him left-handed! He sucks!" And going like, you're out there going like, "Oh my God, like I don't know what to do." But you either shrink from that or you rise up and you go like, "Yeah, force me left-handed because I've worked on it. Yeah, I've outworked you. So go ahead, feel free." But those are the types of lessons you learn unbeknownst to yourself while you're doing it. So then apply to everything else that you do the rest of your life.
So you mentioned you were part of some decent teams, air quotes, Gonzaga basketball, some overseas professional teams as well. When you're in that experience, do you realize kind of what's happening with yourself personally as far as this is shaping me as a leader?
No, I don't.
Does that come later?
I don't. Yeah, I think that comes with a later at a different perspective. But what you get back to is the habits. I think that's what you're aware of, because even at Gonzaga, because my time at GU, I had 3 different coaches, and the first coach, Dan Fitzgerald, who has since passed away, was my coach my redshirt year and freshman year, and then it went to Coach Dan Munson, and then went to Coach Few, who's the current coach, and Coach Fitzgerald and Coach Few recruited me out of high school. Mm-hmm. But what happened when we switched from Fitzgerald to Munson was we scheduled differently as a program. So what Fitzgerald was a little bit more old school, maybe a little more conservative in how he scheduled. And what I say by conservative is he was trying to schedule wins. So you'd play the Sisters of the Poor and you'd play all these teams because you were trying to get these wins. That's an exaggeration. But but with Coach Munson and the younger crew, they said, let's go big. I mean, we go play Top of the World Classic. We play Tulsa, Mississippi State, Clemson. Next week we go to Michigan State, play at East Lansing at Michigan State. We go to Kansas. Wow. So they just said, let's go. And then we happened to be good enough and lucky enough to win some of those games. So like our confidence was going to go like, we can do this. Yeah. Like this is interesting. And then it kind of snowballed and built and built and built. And so when we got onto the big stage in the NCAA tournament my junior year, by that time we were prepared. But what I'm saying to answer your question, it was just habits. Like we didn't. It wasn't. You just every day you just tried to get better.
Yeah.
And so you would go every day, and for us, a priority was winning. A priority wasn't my personal game or your personal game or yours. It was like, how do we get better as a group? And we had a team that bought into that concept, and we worked our butts off. Like, man, everyone else went to parties. We were in the weight room.
Yeah.
Friday night with midnight, we'd walk across campus in the snow because we had a key to the gym. We get our jumpers up. Like that was, and I'm again not saying that was just what we did.
Yeah.
We didn't know any better.
Yeah.
I wasn't smart enough to know that we should have been at parties having fun. Like no, it was like we were going to go work on our game. So it was just the habit building that now with perspective you look back and say, gosh, we were doing some decent things by taking care of ourselves and putting in the extra work and the time and have that dedication.
Yeah.
At the time, you were just, in my mind at least, I knew that I wasn't good enough not to do that.
Yeah.
And if I didn't do that, when I met someone that was equal to me, they would beat me. So I just didn't never want to be outworked.
Smart.
Yeah.
But it was as simple as that. Like it wasn't this grandiose plan. And then on with our particular group, as we started to have some success, we had a lot of attention from the media, local, national media. And so people respond to that in a lot of different ways too. Some people I like this stuff. Like I like trying to explain, answer questions. I like trying to explain maybe some difficult concepts. Mm-hmm. So I like doing the media. And so I got practice public speaking.
Oh yeah.
Unbeknownst to me, I was developing a skill that I could use, in my professional life, beyond playing basketball. So it's like, on accident, I got to learn how to speak in front of people and became comfortable, somewhat comfortable being able to do that.
Yeah.
Like just kind of some of that stuff's dumb luck, but I think it's the culmination of habits of being willing to fail, knowing you can pull yourself back up, putting yourself in opportunity to be uncomfortable on a regular basis because that's where you grow. Yeah. And then just doing that over and over and over again. And then, because I think the thing that people lose is that you don't wake up on third base. Like you don't wake up as a leader. These are things that are developed over time. And I think, when by the time you all interview people, they're already leaders.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of times they've forgotten how they are. Or forgotten how they got there.
Yeah.
Because life kind of, the universe aligns to do some things for us, And so,
and their actions don't necessarily. It's not like you're choosing every action to say, I want to arrive on the leadership mountaintop someday.
Right.
I think that's a common leadership theme that we hear is like the leaders wouldn't necessarily say, I am a certified leader. It's like, to your point, I had habits and I had a work ethic that I didn't know was going to shape me to what I am today. But this is just just my being. Like I
don't know how to do anything else.
Yeah.
And I think for me too, because the team nature of a lot of where those lessons are learned, like Hoopfest, for example, like if everything's going well, like I'm probably bored, right? Because my job, I'm not smarter than anyone else in this office, collectively in this room. Like it's not my role, and I don't aspire to be. I aspire to be surrounded, like hire the right people, empower the right people, be it volunteer or teammate, let them do their thing, but then be their safety net in case something goes wrong and shoulder that responsibility. Because if we win, it's a team win. Yeah. If we lose, I'm strong enough to shoulder that. Yeah. I've done that before. You know what I mean? So it's like that's kind of my philosophy, is just make people around you better.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day that kind of works, but that's mine.
And I think embracing failure, like it, and maybe even failure is too light of a word. Maybe it's more like, oh, no, failure works. I mean, at the end of the day, the team as a collective was producing 99% effective, and the two little things that fail seems to be easy to highlight. Yeah. And so, in my opinion, a good leader takes the fail and learns from it, and then opens that up to the team. Here's how that whole situation could have been handled better by us doing it together instead of you did that wrong. Yeah. So it's not like forcing them to accept they dropped the ball. Yeah. No pun intended.
And everyone responds differently, right? Because some people need a pat on the back, some people need a foot in their ass. Like that's just, and then you learn that in sports too. Yeah. Because I tell you what, I didn't have many coaches that patted you on the back, So I learned in a way that was really personally demeaning. And so you learn those, you learn those tactics. You learn how you respond to that stuff. And then, in the position where I am now, where I kind of get to build my own team. Yeah. Trying to take some of those nuggets and lessons I've learned and trying to, again, and make people around me better, so that ultimately the goal, whatever the goal is, in our case, basketball tournaments and basketball related things, community related things, ultimately get to benefit from that.
So on that note, Phil Jackson, he's best known as the coach of the Chicago Bulls during their run, LA Lakers after that. In the book 11 Rings, you kind of get a view behind the curtain of Coach Phil, and he clearly has a different style for each player. He gives them different books to read, depending on their personality. When I read that book, it's amazing, it's impressive, and it worked. But how to execute that without making people feel like the standards are different for different
else,
team players? How have you come across that?
Yeah, well, I'm not as advanced as Coach Coach Jackson for sure. I think that's a really wonderful thing. I think there's a certain level of just fairness in how you treat people. I think I'm also spoiled. I'm spoiled for the role that I'm in for a couple reasons. One, we're a small team.
Yeah.
Right. So everyone knows each other really, really well.
Yep.
And, other people may know each other better than I know them. So it's a small group. Two, we're the hardest working team of basketball. Like, to produce as much as we produce with such a small budget and so few people, I would put us up against any other basketball organization and say, let's at least compete on it. Let's at least have a conversation about it.
I was on the website yesterday and I'm scrolling through who we are, and I'm like, okay, where's the other 30 people on this team here? And nope, there's just 7.
Nope, just us.
It's impressive.
And then I think too, where I'm really, really spoiled for the role that I am in this organization, is that people care about what they do. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't have to. I'm not managing people. Like, I'm just trying to empower people. And I'm not managing them because they manage themselves. They're professionals. They care about the organization. They care about our programs. They care about the community. And they're proud of their work. So, I mean, really, it's stay out of their way more than anything. Mm-hmm. So me in a different role, if we were, making widgets on the manufacturing line with a different type of employee or a different type of teammate, that's a different type of needed in leadership. Yeah. In this particular group, it like I said, I'm spoiled. It's easy because they care.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Doyle, you're kind of an events junkie.
Oh man, I'm getting seriously amped because I've experienced Hoopfest. I've been in the trenches with you guys. Yep. Almost arm in arm with volunteers. We actually had volunteers on a digital level.
Yeah.
And so the reason I'm bringing this up on a very light scale is if you haven't experienced Hoopfest, you got to come down and witness it. It is bigger than we can even explain. You can't look at the website. You can't see it. Yep. We tried recreating it on YouTube. You cannot see how big the event is until you walk the perimeter. And then you see on the website there's 7 people doing this. Yeah. It's a team effort. And it's a team effort that inspires team effort, that inspires team effort, that inspires team effort, and it literally just keeps on going. Comes right down to the business owners,
Well, yeah, I mean, if you ever want to be humbled, go spend time with the volunteers. Yeah. The amount of work and the hard work that volunteers put in on this thing, like any time that we would ever, like as the 7 of us in the office would ever want to pat ourselves on the back. Like, you just spend 10 minutes with a volunteer going like, I can do more.
Yeah.
I got to figure out a way to do more. Because if you're willing to do that for a T-shirt, or even if you're one of the ones that get a pair of shoes, like if you're willing to do that for a pair of shoes, like how can I not do that? Yeah. And, and back to the leadership style thing is like, it's almost like the Michael Jordan Last Dance. It's like, I never asked anyone to do anything that I wasn't willing to do myself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like, that is the collective, right? That is the collective spirit of Hoopfest. And the other thing that I found really interesting, you mentioned Toyota before we got on air, but I believe there was a Toyota shop in Southern California. They had the 10-foot rule. And if you walked within 10 feet of a problem, it became your problem too.
Oh, yeah.
And that was kind of there. I think there was maybe in the shop, in the maintenance shop, is like, okay, if you walked within 10 feet. Now, there's 2 ways to look at that. Walk 11 feet from everybody. Always stay 11 feet away, so you're never in anyone else's problem.
Walking around with the yardstick.
Exactly. Talk about the social distancing for other reasons, but or it's that sense of ownership, and that's where I think also the Hoopfest volunteer effort is like, if you walk and you see someone that needs help, you help.
Yeah.
It's not a question. What's in it for me? How do I get recognition for this? No, like Doyle needs help, I help, and so you start to see some of that kind of team spirit around. And again, I get to see it all. You're going like, man, this is overwhelming. This is so cool. So to your point, like, it's just a really wonderful thing to be a part of.
Yeah, I've been to a lot of events. I've covered a lot of events in the last 10 years. Some of the ones out of town on a huge scale, like a lot to lose. It needed to sell out. The right people had to be there at the right time. Yeah. Very logistical. Putting it into perspective, comparing it to Hoopfest, which isn't even fair because it shames every other event I've done. At scale, there's so much going on with 7 people at the helm. Yeah. It's overwhelming, to be totally honest. And it's actually intimidating for people coming in from the outside and trying to involve themselves to a degree. But the inspiration's right there. It's like you cross that line and you're in. It's like the 10-foot rule. Yeah, that's right. Everybody has a little something different to bring to the table. And that goes for every event. But for the broad perspective of Hoopfest, it became a broad event. And it fills up a lot of parking lots, takes over the whole. I'm assuming people listening to this may be out of town and living under a rock. But and it's crazy.
I always like to, like, we had ESPN here in 2015. We a great relationship with Nike, and it's always fun because, like, when ESPN came, I think they came in April or May of that year. Tournaments in June, and you walk them all through downtown, and you kind of tell them the site, and it's 3 square miles. I mean, it's imagine for out of town. Imagine Disneyland, literally the footprint of Disneyland, with full of basketball.
Yeah,
because that's what it is. It's 3 square miles. Like, it's Coachella numbers. It's Disneyland. It's name an event. Like, people don't really understand the breadth of this thing. But ESPN was I thought was always really funny because they would come and we walk them around. You go basketball, as far as the eye can see, and basketball as far as the eye can see. And they go, oh yeah, we do these community events all the time. Kind of like a little bit condescending, like, oh, this is cute. You have a 3-on-3 basketball tournament, and then they come back in June and Hoopfest is happening. They go, what the shit is this? Like, this is a real, like, I tried to tell you, like, it's a real thing. Like, I'm not joking. They're like, oh my gosh, like, this is crazy. And I'm like, yeah, I know.
No joke.
I know.
That's crazy.
And so, but it's fun when you get those out-of-towners that come in, or they're coming back to Spokane maybe for the first time in many years. Yeah. Or maybe they grew up here and have left, or they're bringing their kids back, or whatever that. I mean, if you're going to come back to Spokane for Christmas or Hoopfest, you're going to choose Hoopfest.
Yeah.
Because that's when everyone's here, and the town's alive. So it's just a really stinking unique event. I don't know how else
it's
to,
pretty
how
surreal.
Else to describe it.
It's also dripping with it's nostalgia. It's dripping with unique customs.
Yeah.
And like taping on Friday night.
Yeah.
I never knew this, but you get involved with the event, you break into that 10-feet zone, and you all of a sudden start seeing things where people are just lit up and they're on fire. And they may not be a basketball person, but they can sure lay tape straight and they know right where to put it on the painted lines. It's special. It's super cool.
Yeah, and the way that the city transforms, like Friday night when we get the streets at 7 p.m. when we shut everything down and we build in normal years 425 basketball courts, you have the army of volunteers, the forklifts, the tape crew, and it's all this coordinated madness. But Friday night is magic. Like when this place transforms and there's no more cars and we own the streets, and as soon as a basketball hoop goes into the middle of the street, it doesn't have to be extended yet to 10 feet. It could be sitting there. There's people everywhere. Just every basket's full. People playing. You're just going like, where did all these people come from?
It's transformed,
yeah. And then Sunday, we shut it all down within hours. Monday morning, you come back to work, you never knew Hoopfest was here.
Yeah.
That's the cool
downtown's
part.
Cleaner than when you left Friday afternoon. Downtown is cleaner on Monday morning when you get back. And 250,000 people enjoyed the downtown area.
So as we've explained Hoopfest to the max, taking it back to the leadership core here. So now you see Friday happen.
Yep.
Matt Santangelo, the unofficial mayor of Hooptown.
Yeah.
Sees Friday night happen, Monday night clean as a whistle, Monday morning clean as a whistle. How could you sum that up in maybe a paragraph that would bring it to a leadership level?
Hoopfest hangover, that's a real thing. You're in a zone for about 2 weeks because the last couple months, even COVID notwithstanding or pandemic notwithstanding, like the 3 months leading up to Hoopfest is just a steep climb that gets steeper and steeper. It never stops.
Yeah.
And then you're stressed because there's so many things outside of our control, pandemic included, just for our style of an event. So there's a lot of stress and anxiety around this time too, as you're planning to get everything ready so that you can enjoy the weekend. So Mondays, you are like worn out. You're emotionally spent for a little while. But immediately you go back. When my first year, 2014, I thought Monday's like, sweet, we got through it. It was, successful, safe, and you thought you could take a deep breath. You can't, because it's a monster to put away.
Oh yeah.
And no one knows. And so if we do our job, no one really knows everything that was broken, because essentially, if you look at our areas, retail store, sponsor garden, our site ops, beverage program, tape and cleanup, garbage and recycling, all these different areas, team check-in, they're basically we have about 25 major events that all happen at the same time.
Yeah.
And so you start to do all the cleanup of what went right, what went wrong.
Right.
Because we want to get better. So then it becomes more the coaching thing.
Gotcha.
It's like you're watching the game film. You're going, okay, what went right, what went wrong? How do we make it better? And then you hope that you write it down, because you have a year before you get to practice again. It's not like it's like, hey, we're gonna go do it next weekend and we're gonna get better. It's like, I got to remember all this stuff for next year. How didn't we forget? We forgot stuff that it's like, how do we remember it all? So it's like you immediately do that, and then you start the stewardship. You start if things did go wrong, or certain areas or certain people had a bad experience, you're starting to communicate that. So that's the ones that. Even though you may not want to, you still got to stand up and go do it. You got to go make sure that these people are heard, make sure you're identifying if there are real problems, what that looks like, what that solution is. Take accountability for mistakes that we may have made. It happens really quickly. And then the next piece is stewardship on sponsors, like all those great sponsors and partners that support us. Did we represent them in the right way? Did you get out of it what you wanted to? How do we get you back next year?
Yeah, show them
how
some
do we
love
make next year even better?
Yeah.
And so all that happens right after the event. I say the only difference between pre-event and post-event, as far as like hours work and workload, is that just my blood pressure goes down. You're not as stressed, because you don't have that looming deadline of the event coming. But just all the same amount of work. And then it's like painting the Golden Gate Bridge. As soon as you get done,
start at the beginning.
You go back to the start and you start painting that thing again. So there's a lot of that people just don't know. And frankly, they don't need to. When I first took the job, they're like, gosh, is that a full-time job? Like, what do you do the rest of the year? And at first I was defensive, and so I'd give them my resume. Well, did you know that we do this, this? And they go, oh, wow, yeah, I didn't know that. Well, after a couple years, I'm like, I don't need to explain myself to you. Like, we're busy. Yes, it's a full-time. You want to come? You want to do it? I'll get more defensive that way. Like, you want to trade shoes? I'll go sell insurance for a day or whatever. Like, you come run this thing and see how it works. Or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I get a little more snarky now at my old age and veteran status. But but at first it was like you really kind of wanted to defend. Like, God, this organization does all these things. Or now it's just like, if it looks easy, then we're doing our part.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
We're doing it the right way.
So as you were walking us through all that, I'm envisioning Kobe Bryant. He used to play a game, and then he'd often be back in the gym that very night, getting up jumpers. And it's like, it sounds like that's what you guys are doing. I mean, you execute, but then you're back in working on the
muscle memory,
muscle memory, and it's
no drills.
And when you remember it. If you wait a week, you start to forget that one hot button topic isn't as hot a week later. So and people want to be heard. If they have a complaint, if they had a bad experience, if for whatever their experience was at Hoopfest, you want to make sure we acknowledge them. Because at the end of the day, that's what everyone's a part of it. It's like it's not us doing something and you're just watching. I think that from an event standpoint, it also makes it Hoopfest really unique. I call it a participatory event. Because you're not just buying tickets to go see the talent.
Right.
We're not going to see an NBA game or a musician or whatever. That's what most people think of, is like you go watch the talent. At Hoopfest, we are the talent.
Yeah.
We are the one. We're the show. We're the entertainers. We are the talent, which is a completely different thing. So when the talent says, I experienced this, you have to listen. And you should want to listen, because back to coaching and leadership, like, you want to get better. And if you want to get better, you got to listen to coaching. So
absolutely. So I'm still a kid at heart, and whenever I think of Hoopfest, you mentioned ESPN came to town. I know Kevin Durant has been here. I've seen Brandon Roy, Nate Robinson, a lot of others, and it's surreal. So I always am curious, like, behind the scenes, I mean, how does the contact with Kevin Durant happen? Is it Matt says, "Hey, Kevin," texting him, "Hey, do you want to swing by, dude?" No, but I'm curious, how does that interaction happen and come together?
Yeah, so with athletes at that level, that was all our relationship with Nike. And that was a couple years in the making, because we just asked, like, how do we get, and the challenges we had was that Nike didn't want to bring their B-list athlete.
Yeah.
And so, because they have a level of athlete, Katie included, that's private plane, like they get the jet.
Yeah.
And then they have a number of, obviously, Nike athletes that are commercial planes. That's kind of some of their internal ratings. And so the commercial plane people would love Hoopfest, but it's harder to get to Spokane.
Yeah.
You know, you're coming from wherever you're coming from to get into Spokane. They're like, ah. And so that never really materialized. So Kevin Durant was like, hey, private plane thing. But it happened literally the week of the event. So, like, I get a call on Wednesday of Hoopfest week in 2017, and there go a 50-50 chance we got KD coming this weekend. I'm like, okay, but don't tell anyone. Okay. Thursday was like 80. I think Thursday was 90-10. Friday was 99% he was going to come on Sunday.
Wow.
And we're going through operations and run of show to how do we get him in and out of town in 2 hours without, and they didn't want to tell anyone.
Wow.
And so we start to build the run of show, security, how we want to get him to the Grand Hotel, how we want to introduce him to Hoopfest, how we want to interview him at center court. And then I start to tell him, like, by Sunday afternoon, like, people love Hoopfest, but by Sunday afternoon, you're like, I'm out. I'll see you next year. I'm tired. It's hot. Like, I want to go home. Yeah. And so we had to start leaking it. So Saturday night, we started leaking it to certain people, not from the office, but we'd leak it to someone. They would leak it. Like, we got to stick around, so that by Sunday afternoon it was still packed. Yep. And then when he hit the streets, man, we were planning for the whole tournament to shut down. Like, we thought if you were playing up at the arena, as soon as you heard Kevin Durant was here, like, those games are done. Like, it's over. What do we do when you see Kevin Durant, then you go back to finish your game, because those are all championship games, you know? And so, like, just trying to figure out, like, anticipate all the things that are going to happen once you effectively shut down Hoopfest for Kevin Durant. And it was awesome. It was so good. I got to interview him. I had a list of questions that Nike had scripted for me. Yeah. And so I'm at center court, and the first question was kind of a jab. It was like, hey, because the last time Kevin was in Spokane was his last college game. Interesting. Freshman at Texas, NCAA regionals were in Spokane, and they lost in the first round. That's right. So he was the and they made me like, my first question was like, last time in Spokane, Kevin, you got your butt kicked. You know, it was like, I'm like, I am not. I'm like, no way. Like, I am no way am I going to say this negative comment to Kevin Durant while I'm looking up at him having me here at center court. So I reworded it. And it was awesome, too, because I reworded the question, and I think I asked the gist of, like, you've been here before in Spokane, but I just didn't say how or why. They kind of wanted me to give some context. And he looked at me, and he answered the question as it was scripted. So he was ready for it. Oh. And then I was like, oh, we got a professional here. Like, he's he was already scripted, too. And so I was like, oh, this will be easy. So then we just had a conversation. He was fantastic for the 2 hours. That's awesome. But it was really interesting because Nike said as soon as we leave center court, it's going to get ugly. So Brian knew to plan how we would leave center court and get into the car, because he was going straight to the airport. Literally, he was only on the ground for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. But he's like, as soon as people think this is the last time that they'll ever get to see Kevin Durant in person, like, it'll escalate. And sure enough, as soon as we started walking off of center court and people started to get a feel that this was their last chance, it just crowds. And we had our police, Spokane police was engaged, our volunteer site operations and security people. He had his team, Nike had their group. So I mean, we had lots of people, but sure enough, like, banging on the van door, and just, it was like, ooh, man, like how quickly it could, and it didn't, fortunately, but you're kind of watching, like, it's a powder keg right now. Like, this could go the wrong way really quickly. You're just like, wow, this is crazy. And then as soon as you got in the van, he got outside of the barricade, the fence of Hoopfest side. I was like, sweet, he's out, safe. We're good. Out of our responsibility now. I love these stories. I'm not comparing players. He's obviously a very high caliber, and I remember an interaction with Nate Robinson, which was a lot different. So I was just walking in center court at the time, which was in the middle of the park, and I looked over, and there was a couple guys that drove up in a golf cart, didn't recognize them, and then there was a third golf cart, and I took a double take, and it was Nate Robinson. He just rolled up, and some people knew who he was, others didn't, and he just kind of casually watched the games at center court, and
it might have gotten more escalated than that. But
yeah, I mean, my
was
favorite
kinda fun.
one, like organic, is Jamal Crawford. He
yeah.
and Will Conroy come over and they bring their boys over to play every year. So he's a hooper, right? I mean, Jamal is. I mean, everyone looks up to Jamal. And so I remember seeing him on Friday night walking down the street, and I stopped and I go, "Hey," I'm like, and he's just a dad. Like, that's my favorite part. Is like, you know, Kevin Durant is Kevin Durant, but like when Nate shows up or Isaiah Thomas showed up in 19, but when Jamal shows up, he's just here literally as a dad.
Yeah,
interesting.
And he's one of the greatest who've ever
That's
done it. I mean,
super cool.
Stockton would be another example, right? He's one of the greatest who've ever touched the ball that everyone in the city is playing with. And they just show up as dad. And I remember going up to Jamal, and he's a couple years younger than me, but we crossed paths before, so we knew each other. And I said, Jamal. And I not always never sure who's going to remember. It's like, hey, it's Matt Santangelo. He's like, oh, I know who you are. And so we kind of have forged a nice friendship through Hoopfest of just being a dad. Like not Jamal Crawford as a celebrity or former NBA player, or at that time NBA player, just as a dad. And those are my favorite. That's Hoopfest. I mean, that's totally Hoopfest.
That's so cool.
There's another full episode here about just the way that leaders interact with the public, but we'll save that for next time.
Topic for another show.
I feel like I've hijacked most of this stuff.
I love it.
It's good.
Well, this is what we want. We want the show to speak for itself. So
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think it's time for the 7th inning stretch.
I agree, because it's basketball. So why not have a baseball theme?
There are no basketball. It's always like we got to get across the goal line, the finish line. Hey, the kickoff is going to be. There are no basketball.
Yeah, meeting kickoff.
Yeah, there's no tip off. Slam dunk would be one, but that's super cheesy. Like there are no basketball. It's always other sports. And
I don't know.
I'm a banker, and there is one that we use.
Yeah.
If a deal is very, very straightforward, it's a slam dunk deal.
Yeah.
So
that's right. That's the one.
That's the one.
Or we could go baller on some cool topics.
or not. We don't have to do that.
Okay. So we'll go for the 7th inning stretch. So this is kind of one of my favorite parts of the podcast. It's a little separation from the leadership perspective and a focus on the leader.
Yep.
And so we want to find out. We're starting to collect a few interesting little restaurants and things from the 7th inning stretch. So we'll just go right into it. Favorite Spokane entertainment from Matt Santangelo.
Entertainment?
Yeah.
Comedy club.
Oh, sweet. I thought you were going to say Hoopfest.
Okay. Well, I mean, Hoopfest is a given. I thought we were trying to broaden it out a little bit.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, so I think we've had one other guest that brought up the comedy club.
That's right.
Yeah.
Good spot.
Cool. Favorite Spokane neighborhood?
South Perry.
Awesome.
Is there a court?
Yep, at Grant Park.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Ever played?
We did a ball and brew there pre-COVID where we did open run. Just we would go play and then we would go over to Perry Street Brewing and they gave us a little deal. You know how like the running clubs, the Flying Irish and things will meet at a bar. They'll go do their run and then they'll come finish back at the bar and enjoy a drink and enjoy camaraderie and so we tried to build a basketball version of that.
Awesome.
So
that's cool.
Played there.
Favorite Spokane coffee shop?
Indaba should pay me for how much I go there. And the new Thomas Hammer on Grant.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah.
About 31st.
Nice building too.
Is that their like flagship? Brewer roastery.
I don't think they roast there. They still roast over here on Pacific. But it says they have food and they got beer and wine too, so you can do afternoon. You sit there and I really enjoy that.
That's
one.
a cool spot.
But I spend a lot of time in Indaba here on Riverside.
Yeah. Well, it's not very close.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to get in your car and drive there.
Up to Hammer or to Indaba.
No, Indaba. You just go across the street.
Yep.
Okay, now I'm be total dad joke in here. This is crazy. Favorite Spokane restaurant?
Most regularly hit is probably Saranac Public House down on Main.
Oh, okay.
The best margaritas I've ever had and the best guacamole I've ever had is at Zona Blanca, Chad White's.
Oh, yeah.
The
Ceviche that place is great.
Spot, up here on Howard. Big fan of Heritage Bar and Grill, the best chicken tenders in town. Let's see. When you asked me what my favorite entertainment was, I almost said eating out.
Nice.
I love going to restaurants. It's one of my favorite things is to go and to new spots. I try to hit most all of them, and I got some regular hunts that I go.
We say this is the Lilac City Leadership Podcast, but it ends up being like the food podcast. We're always talking about
get
food.
People going on it.
Yeah,
so,
it's great.
Yeah, so
it's pretty cool.
I think that'd have to go with some combination of what I just said.
We'll add some more to our list. We post them on social media. I don't know what is it, Savannah? Once every 2 weeks, maybe every month.
Once every while.
Every while, yeah. So we're getting posts out about our collection of favorite coffee shops from our guests, favorite restaurants. Pretty cool. What do you enjoy most about Spokane?
The connectedness of it. I think too. Now is obviously a really has been a challenging time for a long time. Like it's really divisive. We're really living in a very divisive time. And Spokane, I think, is interesting because it has a good mix of that division, if that's the right way to say it.
Yeah.
But we're all neighbors.
Yeah.
We all know each other. And so it's not where we're all homogenous in one way of looking at things. And we're not Idaho. Just kidding all the Idahoan listeners.
But are we kidding?
But
I guess we are kidding.
But we are in the middle, and unfortunately we've lost a lot of that middle where you have to your extremes on either side. So and I maybe taking the answer in the wrong direction, but it is that connectedness.
Yeah.
It is the 2 degrees of separation maybe.
Yeah.
From where I sit, it's maybe I don't know if it's a full 2 degrees. But that's a good thing.
Yeah,
we know each other. We care for each other. We celebrate each other's wins and we feel each other's losses. I think. Yeah. Always could be better, but that's what I like about Spokane.
I love the fact that Spokane is really the largest small town in America, and that should be the utmost encouragement to just be nice to everybody.
Yeah.
Because word gets out fast.
Yeah,
it comes
that's
around
very true.
quick. I've heard of people having to mitigate what they said and wish they wouldn't have.
That part is true. But again, I don't know. I like that part. I mean, I love the 4 seasons. I don't like this new 5th one we've had the last few years with fire season. I hate our roads. I think it's the greatest irony of all that we have the world's largest street ball basketball tournament and our streets suck. I just think that's so funny to me. It's like, oh my gosh. And so, but it's also kind of part of the charm.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I like the access too. Maybe that is the whole connectedness.
Yeah.
You can get to people. You can get to decision makers quickly. You can ask for help. People are willing to mentor, to answer questions, to help. For the most part, and I think that's unique to our our size of community too.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
Matt, who's the most interesting person you've met along the way on your journey?
Oh gosh, most interesting person. I don't know. I mean, I've had an opportunity to meet some NBA players. Michael Jordan and John Stockton. Some all-time greats. Dr. J was interesting. Actually, he came to Italy for a funeral of a former teammate who was involved in the leadership of a team I was playing for.
Oh, interesting.
So Dr. J came to Italy for that service, and we got to hang out with him for a couple days, and he caught one of our games, and went to dinner with him in really casual settings. But most interesting person, I don't know. Sometimes I think most interesting, like when stuff hits the fan, who are you going to call? I think about that. I've thought about that often. Like what friend group? And I have a friend group from grade school, high school. Yeah. That I know if it didn't matter what the occasion called for. Yep. Like they would be there.
That's cool.
So and I think interesting. I think one gentleman in particular. His name is Sean. Who is kind of our resident comedian in that particular friend group, and every friend group has one. But I remember anytime we're sitting with him, I was sitting with him with my sons, Calvin and Luca. This was several years ago, and we're sitting around the table, and we were probably having a beer and just kind of doing glory days stories and stuff like that. And I remember walking out, and Calvin looked at me, my oldest son, and he's 16 now. This probably would have been 11 or 12, maybe even a little bit younger. And he's like, "Dad, it's like I've never seen you laugh like that." And at the time, I thought like that's of course because we were with Sean and our group of friends, and he never. Then I was like, that's kind of sad that my 11-year-old son or however old he was had never seen me laugh like that. But it goes to show. So when you say interesting, he's the one that popped into my head that no one knows, but he's the one like that is the most interesting. He makes a funny story out of just about everything. So there you go.
So cool. In closing, give us a quick blast on the upcoming Hoopfest, the dates, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep. So September 11th and 12th. we're excited. We got, on the Thursday, so September 9th, we're going to do our first inaugural class of the Hooptown Hall of Fame with an event up at Riverfront Park at the Hooptown USA courts. Friday, we just signed a deal with Red Bull to run a Red Bull 3X tournament, which is essentially the Olympic style of 3-on-3 basketball that was just in the Olympics. So they're going to run, and it's professional, so it's money on the line. So they'll run Friday and then Saturday evening. Saturday, Sunday, of course, is Hoopfest. We're really excited about that. We're doing a lot trying to promote the growth of the women's game.
Awesome.
That's a priority for us. And so we've connected with a couple different groups. One is called Hoop York City, which is a kind of a recreational-led group, female-led group out of New York. We got them coming out to be a part of our event to compete at Hoopfest. We're working to get the women's USA basketball women's 3x3 gold medalist team that won the inaugural 3x3 tournament to try to be a part of their gold medal tour to come through Hoopfest.
Sweet. Nice.
So we're always working on stuff like that. So I say all that because we're excited. If we're planning for it. We just made a pretty tough announcement just yesterday on refunds because we're also watching COVID.
Yeah.
And ultimately, we're going to have to work with the authorities on what that looks like for us. And
right.
we're fortunate that we're an outdoor event, but it still brings a lot of people into town. And, basketball is not a socially distanced sport.
Yep.
So it creates, there is some risk associated with that. So really trying to manage that, but which is difficult. But we're full steam ahead on getting everything done and ready for, September 9th really is when the event starts to happen, and then 11th and 12th for the tournament. Also honoring the 20th year of 9/11.
Oh yeah, that's right.
This year
it's
as well.
Be on
so that'll be Saturday morning. So we are working with Fairchild Air Force Base, our first responders, fire department, and police to do something special to have the moment to honor, honor that memory.
Yeah.
Great.
So no shortage of things to do.
Absolutely.
Before we go forward with our day, is there anything that you would offer to anyone listening to this podcast to inspire them to be a better leader?
Get out of your comfort zone. Take whatever that is. Go take the cooking class. Go do the public speaking. Go do an open mic night. Go find something that's going to make you super uncomfortable, and just make that a habit. It's all about habits.
Nice.
Yeah.
So that's what I think. So just think, there's a great picture where it says it's a big circle in the middle of your screen. It says, this is your comfort zone, and out here there's a little circle that's not Venn diagram, not connectedness. This is where the magic happens. And that's where you got to get outside your comfort zone to get to where the magic happens. And I think a lot of people, we strive for comfort. We don't strive for growth because sometimes it's awkward. It hurts. It's painful. It's uncomfortable. And the more you could be comfortable being uncomfortable, the more growth you have, and the more you can accomplish the things that internally that you really want to go accomplish.
Brilliant.
Awesome.
That's going to be a quote. That's going to be quoted.
Yeah. Can't fail until you fail to try.
What's the worst that's going to happen?
Exactly.
Well, this has been another fantastic episode of the Lilac City Leadership Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, James Krejci.
And I'm the other one, Doyle Wheeler.
And Matt, a true pleasure to have you on the show.
Yeah.
This has been fascinating.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Thanks for your time.
You're welcome.
Wonderful time.